So I was playing in a campaign that took place once a month online. I was having fun role-playing, everybody seemed chill and genuinely fun to be around. No red flags, which is why, when out of the blue after a session, the topic of nose goes and RPG horror stories comes up. I felt like it wasn't that big of a deal to throw mine out there. I would not, under any circumstances, like my character to have any sort of sexual encounters. Much to my surprise, people started laughing instead of the, well, that's not going to happen in this campaign anyway, like I was expecting. I was bombarded with reasons why this was a dumb thing to say. People have sex, though. You could always fade to black. Why would that be a no-go for you? Are you asexual or something? No, I'm not. This is just, like, not what I'm playing RPGs for.
Damn, this game is really good. What you playing, son?
I'm not your son. We're the same.
Just let me have this, okay, man? What are you playing?
Anyway, yeah, I'm playing Baldur's Gate 3. I've been really enjoying it. Like, the gameplay, the story, the world, it's all basically perfect, man.
Really? I mean, what about the romances?
I mean, you know, like, I might romance, like Will or Shadow.
Oh, God, another player who just is playing the game wrong. Sex should be foremost on your mind when playing Baldur's Gate 3. Like, seriously, the only joy in my life is being dominated by Lae'zel. When she beats me up and our fluids mix in with the blood and everything just congeals together.
I would not even be extremely uncomfortable to roleplay up until the scene before fading to black. It's just not what I want out of the game personally. Anyway, this did not feel great. I did not feel super discouraged at first. However, when the very next session had my character's childhood best friend try to go down on him, I did feel a little bit targeted. Bro, they shot a straight ballistic missile directly at me. I made sure to let everybody know whatever the joke was, I was not getting or liking it. And I decided to leave the session. After how people reacted to that, I left the campaign for good. It wasn't a major horror story, I know, but it did leave a sour taste in my mouth.
2 seconds later.
Yeah, edit. I read through the comments and dang. Apparently me saying this was not a major horror story is actually, downplaying the situation quite a bit. Thanks, guys. Feels good knowing that I am not alone on this one. Look, I love romance in my games. I had a lot of fun with romance, but making it mandatory and worse, ostracizing someone for just not wanting that kind of thing? Bro, that's just weird. Crimes I have committed as a game master and would do again. Okay. The party is undercover outside amongst some large rocks. They are 5th level and are in an area populated by an adult white dragon. The dragon lands nearby and starts chewing on one of its claws. One of the party members breaks cover and approaches Big Red, hailing him. The dragon promptly eats him. Player was shocked because he figured I wouldn't put an unbalanced encounter in front of them unless they were supposed to talk to it. Party is trapped on a road, surrounded by 30 large wolves, and talking to the big bad guy of the campaign, who wants them to do something for him. He looks like a 7-foot male elf, which is all my best friend's ideal man. Don't worry, 5-footers out there. You're not dating my friends. You'll find someone. Thank God I'm asexual. Anyway, they're approached by a 7-foot male elf. They know he is a wolf were. What? A werewolf, at least 700 years old and a peerless spellcaster. The party is 3rd to 4th level. During the conversation, one of the barbarians lifts off to the big bad and tells him to screw off and calls him a puppy boner. Without saying a word, the big bad plucked the character's heart out and sucked it dry before the character even fell. The players were shocked and thought this wasn't fair. I took over as an additional game master for my friend's group on the 2nd session. One of the players switched classes twice in the 1st session and then told me that as soon as his character died, he would switch again. He had a bad habit of doing this. He didn't realize the invulnerable plot armor he had acquired at that moment. Me and the other game master refused to kill him. He always squeaked through. and he never knew. I'm sorry, what's the problem?
Yeah, I'm really enjoying my sorcerer, but hey, if this character dies, I'm thinking of playing monk. Like, I got a really cool idea for a character that... DM? Hey, DM? Hello? I need to go to the bathroom.
A few moments later.
Bubble, bubble, toil and trouble. Ensure that his life goes on forever! Hey, DM, this is a really weird-looking bathroom. This is not a bathroom, you idiot! I am invoking the ancient rites and making your character forever immortal. You will never die, and therefore you will never switch your class. Why? Because I hate you. Okay.
Players got snarky about their 1 hour rest and then decided to do something stupid because they would take their hour rest and it would be fine. I proceeded to disturb their rest for the 12 hours of game time. Every 55 minutes or so, something would bump and freak them out. No rest for them! Same party as above started complaining about going over 4 encounters without rest, so I hit them with 17 encounters in 24 hours of game time. I really hate rules whiners, in case you can't tell. Oh, edit to add, I always tell my players, I will never kill you. I will kill you for being dumb.
Bro, that's what that means.
It'll kill you. And if I die... Yes, that's what killing you means.
You might imagine, but Reddit just had a amazing response to all this. You sound insufferable and petty and desperately need to learn what Session 0 is for. Lol. Wow, this is quite possibly the worst GM in the world, and he's actually proud to have done this stuff. The Red Dragon is amazing. I gave the players a hook for an encounter, one player took it, so I insta-killed him. Herder, but he learned his lesson. Actions have consequences. You're insufferable. Congratulations, you won the game. You defeated your players using your infinite godlike powers, completely arbitrary numbers, and infinite supply of NPCs against their singular characters with limited sheet-recorded abilities and randomized dice rolls, the interpretation of which is actually subject to your whim. Actually, you had complete control over what characters were allowed to do in the game. They never stood a chance against you. Honestly, why are you even playing? They can't ever win, and that's what the game is about. Winning and showing off how powerful you are instead of going to therapy and doing some introspection on why you feel the need to win in a collaborative role-playing game. If you guys watch Critical Failure, you know about Jeremy. I've actually continued to watch his videos because I'm working on a sequel to the Tiberius Stormwind episode, and yeah, guys, thanks to Jeremy, I'm well aware, there are people who just act like this, who DM like this, who think this is good, who think fun doesn't belong in D&D. They're usually very pretentious, very friendless, and very annoying. The last comment was spot on. Look, your players aren't going to win all the time, but the point of playing a game like this is to work together. Maybe the story does end in the loss, but what matters is that the players enjoy themselves. Exandria Unlimited Calamity famously ended in a disastrous loss for that party, a destined loss for that party, but everyone had fun creating a story together. Nothing about this DM's game is fun, and therefore, he has failed on a fundamental level. Things have gotten really bad with socializing. There's something about turning 30 that just drives away everyone I know. I wish I had a way to meet new people and share nerdy interests. Thank God for PhoenixFanFusion. This week's videos are sponsored by PhoenixFanFusion, one of the last big nerdy indie conventions out there. Kinda sad to say, but a lot of conventions are run by big corps nowadays. Not PhoenixFanFusion, however. It's made for fans and by fans, and that love has translated into the experience. It's the biggest pop culture convention in the Southwest for a reason. The guest lineup is great. You got the Hobbit cast from Lord of the Rings. You've got Charlie Cox Daredevil along with his enemy, Vincent D'Onofrio Kingpin, and finally, best of all, me! Yeah, I can only pretend to be that confident in myself. But seriously, I will be at PhoenixFanFusion, so if you want to stop by and say hi, you better grab those tickets quick. So if you want a great nerdy convention, some actual celebrities, and me, I guess, you can head down to the description down below and use the code Sunset and Meteor, and you get to go to PhoenixFanFusion on Friday for free. Yeah, don't miss out on this one. As always, supporting our sponsors does support us. Thank you so much to PhoenixFanFusion for sponsoring this week's videos. And without further ado, I'm going to turn back into Anime Rat so that we can get back to the video. The campaign was a homebrew one where a bunch of affluent rich guys were against magic, and they were hunting down any magic users they could find, because they were evil and not to be trusted. The tone of the world was darker and more gritty than any other campaign I've ever been in, which I had fun in. The crew was my paladin, a rogue, and a warlock. Let's call him Henry. There were also a lot of other players, but they didn't show up most of the time, so it was mainly us three. Henry and DM were roommates.
God, they were roommates.
Yeah, they were roommates at the time, which is why he was in the campaign. My paladin was a naive young adult who thought that everyone was able to be redeemed, and of course, her arc was going to include her optimistic worldview changing the more she adventures. Because of this, every NPC she came across belittled her beliefs and her optimism, something DM and I had talked about and agreed to. So that wasn't an issue for me. However, I think this made Henry not take me or my character seriously. He constantly went behind my back, stealing from and manipulating various NPCs, constantly berating my paladin, talking over her and me, and not telling her anything. Warlock was a dark and mysterious character with a dark and horrible backstory, who didn't trust anyone, including the party. Okay, so you just successfully described every freaking warlock in existence. Honestly, just further evidence of Will Ravengard's supremacy. See, that's a warlock I can get behind. Every conversation our characters had was my character trying to connect with his character since, you know, we're in a party, in a campaign. I know my lawful paladin really clashed with the more chaotic and neutral evil-leaning warlock and rogue, so I wasn't expecting us to be the best of friends, but warlock just would not stop being antagonistic towards my paladin. At some point, we came across a city that had a strict no magic policy. An informant we needed lived there. Guards were placed at the gates and on the walls and constantly patrolling the streets. There was a small marketplace in front of the gates, also on constant watch. Rogue and Warlock took the chance to sell their stolen contraband they'd accumulated over the past few sessions. They had to sneak away from my paladin since she had no idea they were stealing this whole time. They sold their stuff with no issue, and then Warlock decided he needed to get into the city by himself, without paladin or even Rogue, who his character was friendly with. He decided to cast Disguise Self in full view of the guards.
You guards, I demand that you let me pass at once. No. This area is restricted. Turn around at once, citizen. The guards may have barred me from this location. Little do they know that I am the perfect disguise. I will infiltrate this place, whether they like it or not. Hello, guards. I am a completely different person, and I am here to enter the premises at once. Bro, I just saw you. Never mind. Stop! You violated the law. Pay the court a fine or serve your sentence at once.
They were immediately defensive. Magic users are either jailed, exiled, or executed, depending on how bad the magic someone used is. Because the warlock is technically outside the city's borders, the guards aren't immediately violent, but they don't like that warlock tried to sneak past them so blatantly. My paladin finally realizes what's going on. She managed to smooth everything over. She was appointed warlock's babysitter to make sure he didn't do anything else or leave her sight. It sucked, but we as a party were supposed to stick together anyway, so I honestly thought this was going to be a non-issue. The moment we were in the gates, though, Warlock immediately casts Disguise Self again and tries to run off. Of course, the guards are still like right there. They're still watching. We're not even 3 meters away from them.
Now that I've gotten away from those pesky guards, I can put on my disguise. I'm still standing right here, dude. Like, right here. I can still see... Stop! You violated the law! Pay the court a fine or you will serve your...
DM keeps asking Warlock if he really wants to do this. My paladin used all of her charisma and intimidation to handle the situation, and now Warlock was just throwing that away. Our characters have a telepathic connection going on, and my paladin was simply begging Warlock not to be difficult, just for once. The guards immediately go on the attack, focusing large crossbows onto the Warlock, and they're no longer listening to me. Paladin starts demanding Warlock to come back, so that way the guards didn't just kill us all immediately. Warlock ignored me and tries to fight back with more magic. Of course, whatever he does doesn't change the situation, and actually, he's making it all worse. All of this just because Warlock had some kind of dark secret he didn't want anyone to learn. This was something he brought up a lot. He had a horrible, plot-changing secret that absolutely no one could learn. And obviously, he keeps that secret a secret by drawing a bunch of attention to himself. That's gonna keep everything under wraps. The session ended then and there. DM needed a way to find some way to save our party. The Warlock could die, obviously, but the Warlock was Henry's darling character. DM knew that if Warlock died, Henry would be awful about it and mope and take out his frustration on the DM. And remember, you know, they're roommates.
Oh my god, babe, we're roommates.
Forget it, shut up! Next week, DM saved us through Deus Ex Machina, having the informant we were supposed to meet recognize Warlock and save us from the city guards. Informant was Warlock's, pseudo-uncle, which fair enough, I guess. My paladin was angry and frustrated at Warlock, and she went off at Warlock about how he needs to start trusting the party, and he can't just go and do whatever he wants, or he's gonna get us killed. And no matter how much paladin's annoyed at him, she doesn't want him to uselessly die. Warlock shrugged it off, saying he has been through too much to trust someone as ignorant as my paladin, among some other stuff that basically added up to, my character is too angsty to be a team player. Which, while I think that sort of character could work, I really don't think Henry is playing it off too well. At this point, I was sick and tired of the edgy routine. Warlock was stubborn and had some sort of dark secret. And Henry himself? He was just a difficult person all around. He would always talk over people, making everything about him. He'd lie generously in order to impress people. And when we called him out on it, he'd just go, I have autism. I'm bad at talking. Which is like DM and I both also have autism and we don't lie about everything. Henry called himself a premium man. He wouldn't listen to what anyone said unless we raised our voices or even swore at him. We were all religious at the time, so swearing was actually a big no-no, but I'm not even that anymore. We stopped playing sometime after this due to scheduling issues, and I also broke up with the DM. Wait, you were dating? I swear I'm gonna get 1,000 comments again of people like, oh my god, she made it obvious earlier. Bro, how was I supposed to pick up on that? Also, Warlock's big, deep, dark secret, the thing he almost got himself killed to hide. Warlock had died years ago and was actually a changeling pretending to be Warlock, except none of our characters had any connection to Warlock. We never knew the real Warlock. As far as I know, there was no lore set up about changelings being like evil or enemies or whatever. The fact that Warlock was a changeling wouldn't have meant anything to my paladin or my rogue. Wild. Honestly, I think a changeling reveal could work with a new character. Revealing that your species is something different than it is on the surface is cool, but God, Warlock is doing it all wrong. First and foremost, if he has some big secret, advertising it with a big neon lit sign, I have a secret, that's not really a good way to go about it or make it fun for anyone involved. I generally recommend you don't mix parties like this with good and evil characters because they can really struggle to get along and the game could just go nowhere. But in truth, it looks like Warlock is the only one really screwing around. And that is an issue. It doesn't really matter what your alignment is. If you have a character who's disruptive, that's the problem. Chaotic stupid is the worst alignment of all. I guess we can thank God for scheduling conflict, because who would want to stay in a game like this? Last week, I finished a D&D campaign for the first time, so I'll use it as an opportunity to finally process the first time I played the game. Picture this. A D&D/board game club in a local library in my hometown. We played Magic the Gathering in Caton, but we decided to try D&D at this point, seeing as we finally had enough people. It was basically me and my 2 former classmates. At this time, we were around 16. There was a guy, a girl, and me, female/non-binary, and that's kind of important here. There was also a bunch of STEM uni students in their 20s, and the Dungeon Master, the Wizard, a religious studies major who was a little bit into the whole thing. He'd arrived there in full wizard getup. Well, I do love a man and in any game we played, he'd get so angry about the rules, but somehow that's not what made it all fall apart. The red flags were bright, so naturally, as the bunch of losers we were, we saw it as an opportunity for underage drinking.
Foolish mortals, you are no match for the power of the Scourge.
Comrades, I'm sorry. We've tried to defeat the Lich King, but he is far too powerful. There is no other way. I must resort to our final option. Yes, bring all you have to bear against me. What the fuck is this?
It was opportune, seeing as the guys would sometimes go to a bar near that library after playing, or just straight up play in the bar. So anyways, we're making characters, then the first session comes along, no session 0, obviously.
Come on, seriously?
Honestly, it was so bland, I don't remember anything from it, except that it was Pathfinder, not 5th edition. Something pre-written, and that during character creation, we discussed that Mensa is a bunch of circle jerks, because one of our characters was super smart, or whatever, and that player was clearly venting some frustrations. I'm sorry, what is Mensa? Oh. Well, it's founded by a guy named Lancelot, so it has to be legit, right? So here it comes. Right after the session, the wizard comes up to me in front of everyone, compliments my appearance, and asks me out on a date. Again, I was 16, which he knew, and wizard was, as I later found out, almost 10 years older than me. It was extremely awkward for everyone, and we all started taking the piss, but somehow I ignored the display of inceldom, and we met in a cafe that weekend. This is gonna end great. Naturally, it was a disaster. I guess he thought I'd be more timid and innocent, because even though I was a lonely teen seeking attention when he said some weird things about women and his expectations for a potential girlfriend, I said total incel weirdo stuff. He's also like 25, bro! Yeah, I noped out of it. I called my dad in the bathroom, who was more than happy to pick me up. When I talked about the date with one of my classmates, she said, bless her heart and stuff, maybe he didn't notice you were uncomfortable because he's autistic. And I'm like, dude, we're all autistic here. Seriously, that's not an excuse. And also, not a joke, just a fact. Because at least 2 other players were diagnosed, and later I found out I'm also neurodivergent. Anyway, this is right before the pandemic, so it would have gone to crap anyway. Screw the Black Plague, okay? The age gap! The age gap! But during that, I actually got into actual play podcast through One Piece D&D, joined a Roll20 game inspired by it, your average scheduling horror story, tried and failed DMing Curse of Strahd, and met my girlfriend, who was the DM of the Finnish homebrew campaign, and is probably listening to it if you picked up my story. Kinda ironic that this is the good ending of a vaguely similar situation. Also, for the Tiefling OC I created for that first campaign, I'm planning to use them in a story and maybe the next campaign with my girlfriend, so that's cool as well. So, at the top, I made a couple jokes about ignoring the age gap, but at the end of the day, this is a kid. When you're a kid, it's not your responsibility to not get creeped on. I mean, obviously, you should try, but this person did not know the wizard's age, and only found out about the massive age gap later on. It's on the wizard to not initiate the dating situation in the first place. There are absolutely people who put responsibility on the kid, especially when the kid is a girl or feminine presenting, and that is unacceptable. It's on the adult, full stop, to not be a friggin' weirdo. Thank God he was saying all that incel crap. Gave you plenty of reason to bail out. In late 2022 to early 2023, I ran an online homebrew campaign through Roll20 that was basically D&D meets mecha anime. So I had played the game Xenogears and become inspired to run something with giant robots. The system I chose to use was called the Jovian Project, and I swear, all of these have the best names. Xenogears, Jovian Project. Fantasy's gotta step it up, right? Sci-fi's got the naming conventions down. Look, the system was reliable enough to use. The first time running that system definitely was a learning experience due to how weird it was put together. Regardless, it was a fun little experience with some Discord friends that came with one odd player. So the group was composed mostly of newbies. Despite this being a more roleplay heavy campaign, I was aware that the majority of the players were going to need refreshers and a bit of a handhold. If you took a shot for how many times they all asked if you rolled a d20 for a skill check or attack roll, you'd be dead before the 5th and final session. So I calmly anticipated their questions and had a copy of their character sheets I could pull up with just a few clicks. I'm gonna try to keep things condensed and focus on the one person who was more or less a thorn in the side of an otherwise fun game. We'll call her Leaf, who is playing a barbarian mech? Is that how the system works? Anyway, our mecha barbarian had some consistently weird issues that made me question, why she was here in the first place, like how she canceled last minute on 2 separate sessions almost back to back, and the fact that you could hear the background of her mic constantly. While the other players would be asking questions for confirmation, Leaf would be asking questions to things that would have been answered if you were just paying attention. For example, the party came across a large gemstone in the pool of water and were deliberating on how to pull it out. 5 minutes in, with them failing to pull the gemstone out of the rock it was stuck in, the party realized they could use Leaf, asking her to use a hammer she had to pound the ground while another party member tried to wheel it free. Upon Leaf being called in, it was as if she didn't know where we were, as she proceeded to ask questions about what the gemstone looked like and where it was. To be fair, I'm like that when I'm playing any competitive game. Like, oh my god, where are the enemies? I don't see them! And they're like right in front of my face. It happens, bro. After 4 sessions of this, and we were coming up on the final session of the current story arc, which I tried to advertise as much as possible to the party, I went to Leaf in private to voice these concerns, bring up how it felt like I was controlling her character for her. She apologized, saying she'll try as hard as possible to be focused on the session, and I tried to communicate that I was mostly worried about if she was aware of what was even going on in the game. The next day came, and it was time for the final session. I should probably take a bit of blame for what happened in the session. As I had a lot of enemies to manage, I was introducing the party to mech combat via a raid fight with easy enemies. This, combined with how a different party member had to call out last minute, put a lot of stress on me as the game master, but I pushed on, hoping everything would go well. The party was doing a bit of roleplay to set things in motion before we got to the long combat section, which I warned them about beforehand. The other 3 party members were conversing and scoping out a scene where a mysterious massacre took place. All of a sudden, I hear Leaf screaming something angrily. We each were concerned, but she assured us she was fine. She was getting angry at Call of Duty.
Look here!
Let me state that clearly. During a climactic session with complex combat mechanics, Leafy was loudly playing Call of Duty to the point where we could all hear her. I was frankly taken aback by this, despite her claims that apparently helps her to focus. Yeah, okay, sure, this helps you focus, right. Cool. It wasn't until the 3rd time of her yelling loudly into her mic that I asked, I don't mean to be a jerk, but why are you playing D&D if you're playing Call of Duty? She apologized and promised to keep quiet while this was going on, and while I should have taken action, I didn't want to ruin the session I was running. Bro, this is gonna ruin the session you're running, I'm telling you that right now. So I let it slide to just focus on the other players. We finally got into combat, and despite the beginning frustrating me for a couple of rounds, the other players were doing well enough, trying to experiment with their options, and so was Leafy, as far as I thought. However, at one point, she started displaying the same sense of unawareness she had shown before, as I realized something. They were trying to attack an enemy, but asked where the enemy was. Confused, I asked for clarification, as the token should have been clearly visible to everyone. They proceeded to tell me they weren't able to see the map. Apparently, they had been relying on me streaming the map on Discord for them to see what was happening. They weren't even on Roll20, where we were playing the game. Bro, how are you looking at a black screen and just thinking it's fine? I had streamed the map before for another player that was mobile only, but apparently my screen being down meant Leafy didn't know what was happening visually. I was furious, and while I didn't yell at them, you could hear the anger in my voice, so I told them I'm going to fix the issue and began running a new instance of the stream on Discord. The rest of the session went fine enough, despite the fact Leaf left almost directly before the dramatic finale with the boss of the session. I was able to talk to the rest of the party members about their involvement, made sure they gave comments and expressed their opinions before calling it a night. After some discussion and debate, I made the decision to boot Leaf from the party. I just cannot comprehend why anyone would want to join a D&D campaign and just not play the game. Like, sure, we were all friendly with each other, but I guess at the time I had never encountered players who come to TTRPGs not to play the game, but just to hang out and voice chat with other people. My friends are definitely social gamers, so I don't expect them to be super into the roleplay, even if they are pretty into the combat. However, none of them do anything like this. Like, yeah, our goal primarily is to spend time with each other. That's what we play D&D for. But D&D is not like Mario Kart, where you check out and everything is fine. D&D does require some baseline level of involvement. If you don't care about the characters, or the world, or the game, or the combat, then why are you here? Why are you playing the game? And not only will it hurt the game for you, it'll furthermore hurt the game for everyone else around you. There's nothing wrong with having a social game. Again, that's the game I usually play. But all my friends are still invested in some level. And besides, playing Call of Duty is damn near unacceptable anyway. I don't care if it's your coping mechanism. Your coping mechanism cannot distract everyone else at the table. That is a hard rule. I don't care how much it helps you. Hey, that's a wrap. If you guys enjoyed, then you might enjoy this episode of Critical Failure, where we roasted the worst D&D book ever written. It's linked up in the cards, but before you go, please do leave a like on this one and subscribe to Crispy's Tavern so you don't miss any more content as it comes out. And finally, if you want to leave your own stories or thoughts, you can head down to the comments down below. If you can't think of a comment, leave the comment. That doesn't sound fun. Tell me to at the end of the video. Hey, by the way, if you have your own horror stories, you can send them directly to us. There's the email down in the description down below. Send your stories our way for a chance to be featured in one of these videos. But hey, even if you don't have any stories, in essence, like, comment, subscribe. I'll see you all next time. Farewell.